Hi guys, I hope you're all well and welcome to episode 172 of the James Layton Fitness Podcast. Now within this specific episode we'll be discussing what actually happens when you cut out foods or food groups unnecessarily. Well, this is what typically happens. People will start cutting out foods unnecessarily, for example sugar, fat, carbs, milk, dairy, processed food. This is by no means an extensive list, but you get the idea. People will just cut these foods out unnecessarily, and then all of a sudden they start losing weight, and they associate that weight loss with cutting out that particular food, and that's a very dangerous place to be, because that starts to create a potential bad relationship with food, because you think, oh, when I cut this out I start losing weight. But the harsh reality is all that's happened is you've just created a calorie deficit need for fat loss. All those foods or food groups I've just mentioned, they all contain calories, and if you take those calories out of the diet without replacing them, and you're in a calorie deficit, i.e. you're burning more calories than you're consuming, you're going to start losing weight. But remember, it's the calorie deficit getting you the results. It's not because you've just eliminated sugar or fat or carbs or milk or dairy or meat or processed food. And unfortunately, there seems to be a very big trend in the fitness industry at the moment. Even this was very common before, but even more so now. People love to have black and white answers. They love to think, oh, if I just cut this out, oh, that's the reason why I'm not shredded, because I'm eating this food or I'm having this. And the reality is it's not. It's just you're just not in a calorie deficit needed for fat loss. That's why you're not achieving your fat loss goal. So my suggestion would be to focus on the calorie deficit as opposed to cutting out any of the above foods unnecessarily. Now, keep in mind that if you have an intolerance to something, then quite clearly you should be eliminating that food. However, if you don't have an intolerance to any of the above foods, there's no reason why you can't have all of the above within your diet when you're trying to achieve your fat loss goals. Now, keep in mind, you're going to obviously have to moderate certain foods. So, for example, processed food, I wouldn't recommend having all of your nutrition intake from processed food, because you're going to start to have micronutrient deficiencies. It's going to be quite difficult to hit some well set up protein, carbohydrate, and fat targets. You'll likely be tired all the time, because typically processed food is not very satiating. But the point I'm making is you can still have all of the above foods, but you might have to moderate something. You don't need to completely cut any of the above foods out of the diet. So that's really what I want you to be focusing on what does count, which is creating that calorie deficit needed for fat loss, as opposed to cutting out foods unnecessarily unless you have an intolerance to any particular food. So how do you know if you're in a calorie deficit? Well, the only way you know if you're in a deficit or not is whether you're actually losing weight over a period of time. If you're not seeing any weight loss over a period of time, and taking out, okay, there can be times where water retention can mask fat loss progress on the scale, especially for females, but for the most part, if you're not seeing that scale weight gradually go down, that means you're not within a calorie deficit, and you either need to drop calories or increase energy expenditure from more cardio. So remember that the goal within the fat loss phase is to try and lose approximately 0.5 to 1% weight loss per week, because that is a slow enough rate of weight loss to help you maintain as much muscle mass as possible. As I always say, there's two goals within the fat loss phase: to lose body fat, but also to maintain as much muscle mass as possible. And it's that second objective that therefore means you don't want to be too aggressive with the calorie deficit. You also want to have your weight training as the foundation of your routine. You want to have sufficient protein to preserve lean muscle mass, and then calories set to create that calorie deficit need for fat loss. So hopefully this has been useful. That's what happens when people cut out these foods or food groups. It's not because they've eliminated them that they've started seeing weight loss. It's because they've basically just reduce their calorie intake, and if they're not replacing those calories with other foods, then more than likely they're going to be in a calorie deficit, and they're going to start seeing fat loss progress. But it was the calorie deficit, getting them results. It wasn't avoiding that particular food. So remember, that's so important to realize. Again, some of those foods you might have to moderate. The processed food, don't have processed food dominating your diet. But if you can have, say, for example, 80 to 90% of your intake from whole food, single ingredient whole food, there's no reason why you can't have 10, 20% intake from processed foods, as long as it's within your calorie targets, as long as it's within your macronutrient targets as well. So hopefully that's been useful. If you're still yet to subscribe to the podcast, please do, as these episodes come out every single week, and therefore it will prevent you from missing any episodes. Additionally, if you're still yet to download my free ebook, How to Set Up a Nutrition Plan, if you go to James Layton, Layton fitness.co.uk, you'll see a tab at the top of the page called free ebook, and you can download that immediately. I look forward to speaking to you next week. Thank you very much.